Everyone, welcome to week 2 of distance learning. Today we're going to talk about sugar facts and everything you need to know. Okay, maybe not quite everything you need to know, but a lot of stuff that you need to know about sugar. As you can see, I'm turning my volume up there so you can hear me clearly. So if we're trying to figure out, we've already figured out how many calories we need in a day. We've already figured out our fat grams in a day. So let's try and figure out um, our sugar grams in a day. So you're going to use this formula to figure out how many calories of sugar you should eat. So take the calories you should eat per day, which is what you figured out last week, and you're going to multiply that by 0.55 to get your number. And you're also going to multiply by 0.1 to transfer. Then that first number you're going to get by multiplying by 0.55, you're going to multiply by 0.1 to transfer calories into grams, which take the above answer divided by 4. And you get that final answer, since there are 4 calories in each gram of sugar. So again, take your total calories, you can see it down here at the bottom, take your total calories, multiply that by 0.55, then take that number and multiply it by 0.1, then you're going to take it and divide it by 4, and that will give you the grams of sugar each day. As you can see, we have the grams of sugar here is only 10% of our diet in our 10 to 15% protein, 30 to 35 fats, 55% carbohydrates. We're looking at about 10% for leftover for sugar. So not a lot. So let's do some understanding of sugar in food on the labels, even when there's no fat, because sometimes that's where we get no sugar, but we get high fat, or vice versa. So sugar grams add up really fast. This is one reason why pop is so unhealthy. If you look at a 2-liter bottle of Coke, there are 216 grams of sugar. Divided by 4 equals how many teaspoons of sugar there are. Now, if you look at the far right, there's 0 fat. So people look at that like, oh, good, pop is good for you, or this Coke is good for you, it's healthy. But in the serving size, you get 64 fluid ounces, which is 2 liters. There are 800 calories. There are 216 grams of carbs, and there are 216 sugar grams. So if you take that 216 grams of sugar and divide it by 4, you're looking at those teaspoons of sugar, which is there's 4 grams in 1 teaspoon of sugar. Maximum carbohydrates I should eat per day is about 300 grams. So the maximum sugar I should eat is my calories for sugars on the right there, for sugar grams on the left. We did that formula already. This is the first number that we did, that calories multiplied by 0.55, and then multiply that by 0.1, and then you take it to find out the sugar for grams, and you divide that number by 4. And that will give you your grams of sugar each day. All right, we're going to do a little experiment. This is your assignment for today. So if I was you, I would either take out a piece of paper or pause the video on the next few slides, because you are going to guess the order of these next few items. And we are going to be, so this is what the worksheet looks like that is attached. If you want to use that, you can. If you want to just write them down and then put them in order and submit it that way, that works just fine too. So here's the first category. We are ranking these drinks in order of lowest to highest in teaspoons of sugar. Lowest meaning that is the worst for you, or the most sugar. Okay, so again, we'll do it this way, less confusing. Highest is the first one, number of teaspoons. Highest number of teaspoons If you look at the worksheet, now that I'm looking at it, I'm saying I'm going to do it differently. So scratch what I just said, and now let's do it this way. Man, this sounds just like what I do in class. So we're going to start with the lowest amount of sugar as number 1, working all the way to the highest amount of sugars as number 5. So these are your 5 beverages: your Sprite, your Arizona green tea, your Gatorade, your Monster, and then your Treetop 100% apple juice. So again, your number 1 drink is the lowest amount of sugar. Then moving all the way to number 5 being the highest. Okay? If you're not done yet with your ranking, pause before we go on. We're going to do the same thing for these foods. These foods on the worksheet are listed as snacks. I don't know about you, but not very often do I eat a chocolate chip cookie sandwich for a snack, but right now, as I just got done eating lunch, that looks delicious. My kids would choose the Pop-Tarts, the brown sugar cinnamon Pop-Tarts, and the Skittles. These chocolate-covered raisins wouldn't be so bad if you like raisins. And then there's also a power bar here. Again, you are ranking these in the lowest amount of sugar all the way to the highest. Okay, again, number 1 is lowest, all the way to number 5 is being the highest amount of sugar. Pause if you're not done. We have one more category here that we're going to look at in a minute. So one thing we are going to look at today is total fat versus saturated fat. Peanut butter is a great example of good total fat, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Here is your next category. These would be listed as dinners. Why there's chocolate milk and almonds in the dinner category, I don't know, but just go with it. So again, these dinners, we have lasagna, which looks great. We have a Mexican style supreme pizza, that's also good. A beef and bean burrito, whatever, that doesn't look as good to me. Maybe it does to you. We have some hickory smoked almonds, which those look absolutely delicious to me. And then we have some chocolate milk as well, ranking those lowest amount of sugars to the highest amount of sugar. And if you are done with that, great. Otherwise, you can pause, but we are going to continue moving on. Oops, skipped one. So we're going to look at this jumbo muffin here. If you look at the serving sizes, it's 1/3. It's circled at the top. 1/3 of the muffin is what we're talking about when we're in the serving sizes. And we'll talk about reading labels later on this week. But all of these numbers are crazy because in order to find the actual amount, you need to multiply it by 3 because they're dividing each jumbo muffin into 3 parts to get these numbers. So that's why it looks like, oh, this one jumbo muffin doesn't have that many calories. It's 211 calories. Well, that's if you divided that muffin into 3 equal parts and then ate that 1 part each time. But most people, like myself, if I see that middle row of chocolate chip muffins, I'm going to eat the whole thing because it's just delicious. So I'm going to have to multiply all these numbers by 3. So again, if you look at the sugars, there's 16 grams. There are 4 grams in 1 teaspoon. So we have to take 16 grams times 3 because you know we're eating that whole muffin. And then we're going to divide it by 4 to get our teaspoons of sugars. So my real quick math here says if I take 16 grams of sugar and I multiply that by 3, I'm going to get 48 grams of sugar in the muffin. I'm going to divide it by 4 to get 12 teaspoons of sugar in 1 muffin. Sounds super healthy and super delicious, right? All right, let us continue. Saturated fat, there are 3 grams of saturated fat. We're going to multiply that by 9, and then we're going to divide that number by 4 to figure out how many grams of saturated fat we have, and it's going to be 2.25 grams of saturated fat. we'll talk more about that here. So after the demo, we're going to hand out we'll skip this one here. So now we're going to look at the sugars in the drinks. So next to your order, I'm going to slide back up to this one. Next to your order of these drinks, I want you to write down the sugar in teaspoons. So this serving size is 1 can, and they're 38 grams. Okay, 38 grams of sugar, which if we divide that by 4, we're going to get our teaspoons of 9.5. 9.5 teaspoons. Okay, here is our next can of juice. 38 grams of sugar. We know that's 9.5 grams of teaspoons of sugar. Here is our next one. Now remember, this is the tricky part. There are 3 servings in this container. So we take our 17, we multiply by 3, and we divide by 4 to get 12.75 teaspoons of sugar. Now again on this one, on our Gatorade, we have 14 grams of sugar. That's not so bad, but there's a container size. The serving size is 4. So times 14 by 4 to get 56, and divide that by 4 to get 14 teaspoons of sugar. Now the last one, Monster, 27 grams, but there's 3 serving sizes. So multiply 27 by 3 to get 81, divided by 4 equals 20.25 teaspoons of sugar. As we go on, I would like you to do the rest of these on your own. Pause to the video so that you have enough time to do your math, but take your grams of sugar, multiply it by the serving size, and then divide by 4. So you have 44 grams, 1 serving size. Figure out your teaspoons for your ice cream sandwich here. 32 grams, again, the serving size per container is 1, so take that 32 and divide it by 4. This serving size is 4 for the chocolate covered raisins, so multiply the sugars by 4 and then divide that number by 4 to get your teaspoons of sugar. That one will be an interesting one. The serving size for the Skittles, now be careful on this one because there's 45 grams. However, there are 13 servings in this container. So multiply by 13, then divide by 4. Moving on to the Power Bar, 22, but there's 3 servings, so do that math. On to the foods here, the dinners. Again, if you're not caught up, make sure you pause the video after each one of these to figure it out. We're looking at fat here in the dinner. Looking at fat here in the dinner, so take that saturated fat and divide that by 4, I believe is the number again here. Yes, divide that by 4 like we did down here at the bottom to get that saturated fat number. So that'd be 6 saturated fat grams times 1, because that's the serving, divided by 3 to get your grams of saturated fat. Or your teaspoons, excuse me. Here's the next one. Serving size per container is 6. This one has 9 total saturated fat grams, but there's 3 servings per container. Do that math. 3 times 3 divided by 4 to get the teaspoons. 6 servings in this lasagna. And then chocolate milk has 2 servings. So here is the teaspoons that you can be writing in there as well. The correct order on the right that you figure out how well did you do. There's a little peek. So all carbs turn into glucose, but the faster they enter the body, the worse it is, and the faster they spike our blood glucose levels. Again, glucose is sugar. We'll talk about that here in a second. So try whole wheat and not white. Look for the words whole instead of other words. Speed up, if they speed up the process, like processed foods are chopped or sliced or mashed or juiced, like this is apple juice, that speeds it up. Slows it down as fats, proteins, fibers, whole fruits, and vegetables. Simple carbs spike blood sugar, and then blood sugar levels crash, and you feel tired and crave more sugars. This is why on the day after Halloween, you have all this, you feel jittery and yucky, and that's that sugar crash after um, eating all that candy and stuff from Halloween. So, different sugars, we have maltose, which is a lot of times in beer. We have sucrose, which is like table sugar. Honey is just pretty much pure sugar for the most part. Lactose, which is like a milk sugar, and then fructose, which is a fruit sugar. You can see from the top to bottom, worst to best. But these are all considered to be simple sugars. So as we look at the second list here, there's a little glimpse at that one. Um, so basically on labels, you can look at the calories if you want to lose weight and servings, remember. You can look at the fat if you want to lose body fat and get that six-pack of abs. You can look at saturated fat if you have heart problems, and you can look at protein if you want to build muscle. So a good fat example would be total fat is 16, but the saturated fat is only 1. But if you want to lose weight, count calories, not fat grams. Beware of labels that advertise low fat or fat free. It might mean they are high in sugar. So like these Swedish fish that are absolutely delicious, I could eat the whole bag, are fat free. However, if you look at the grams of sugar, they're very, very high in sugar. Also, if you look at the calories, they're fairly high because they're talking about 7 pieces giving us 150 calories for 7 little Swedish fish. I know if for my own personal self, I eat more than 7 when I sit down and eat Swedish fish. Saturated fat and sugars. You don't have to give up all your sugar or all your fat. It's about choices, and reading your food label is how you are eating, or to know what you're eating. That's the biggest thing. Decide what you need to do and how or what you want to do, and then choose wisely. So, for example, we have 2 different dinners here. I would choose neither of these. However, if you had to choose one based on total fat or calories, you're going to look at probably the bean and cheese burrito as opposed to the beef and bean burrito. If you don't really care about the fat and you're more worried about the calories, then the beef and bean burrito might not be a bad option because it's only 100 more calories. So it just depends. Sweet tooth choices. We have a Rice Krispies treat, or we have a fruit pie, fruit filling, apple pie here. Look at the difference. Most people would think, oh, apple pie, that's got to be good for you. But look at the calories in that thing and the total fat as well. One simple Rice Krispie treat is going to satisfy that hunger and be a lot better choice in both calories and total fat compared to the Hostess fruit pie. If you're talking about a candy bar, same type of thing. You're talking about 100 grand, which these are delicious. I like those, but I also like the Caramello, which is basically like your caramel chocolate candy bar. Again, a huge, huge difference in calories and total fat. So, fat and sugar reflection. One thing I've learned so far about calories, fats, and sugars is what? Think about that answer. Some changes I feel would be healthy for me to make in food choices are what, if any? And how motivated are you to actually make those changes? Write one of these on your paper. So, what you're going to do for your assignment is you've already done some of it. You're going to put those food groups in those 3 categories: the drinks, the snacks, and the dinners, into the lowest amount of sugar to the highest amount of sugar, and you're going to put the teaspoons of sugar on there. And then I want you to answer this last question. How motivated are you to actually make changes? Actually, you got to answer the 2 changes. two questions. Some changes I feel would be healthy for me to make in my food choices are what, and how motivated are you to do that? Okay. All right. If you have questions, get a hold of me, email, text. Some of you have my Snapchat. Yeah. Thanks for listening. Have a good one.